Hello and welcome to Rant Time by Salty McSpreadsheet Boy. Let's talk about balance, shall we? Disclaimer. The views in this video are my opinion and my opinion alone, under no pretense of representing other people or the Balance Gulag, even though the Balance Gulag and my participation in it will be frequently referenced herein. Now, what's wrong with the game? Clan Laser Vomit Alphas! Oh wait, that's not a clan mech, let's just ignore that. Well, okay. Clan Laser Vomit isn't really what I think is wrong with the game, but it's definitely a problem per se, and it's what PGI is focusing on right now, so I'm going to talk about it. I think PGI is responding to feedback when they're setting their eyes on Clan Laser Vomit, because it's something I see people frequently whine about. Absurd alpha damage, long range, decent heat, it is kind of overbearing. It's not really the mystical mech deleting 94-point alpha that's at fault here, because that's only one mech. If this was a one mech problem, we could just give it negative quirks. That's exactly what the quirk system's there for after all. But I do agree with the sentiment that Clan Laser Vomit as a whole is a little overbearing. The Hellbringer is immensely strong in the current meta, and it doesn't have that high of an alpha. It's also not as popular anymore because it's boring to play. And that just brings me to my point. One of the strongest build paradigms in the game is easy to play, and it's just dull. So damage, that's what everybody always points at, especially when comparing directly to Inner Sphere. The Balance Gulag did suggest a slight reduction in damage to the offending weapons. PGI took to the table and ran with it. On the PTS, we see an absurd reduction in Clan Laser damage values, which I think goes counter to the spirit of the game. Now, I told you this was going to be a proper rant with all the disclaimers, so I'm not about to disappoint. Clan lasers should have significantly higher damage. At least 20% more? That's what defines what clan is to me. It's supposed to be superior on the surface. More damage, more range. That's why I enjoy clan. That's why I play clan. That's what makes clan fun for me, because I know that I can deal a massive amount of damage. But at what cost? Longer cooldowns? Yes, absolutely. But if we want to reduce the net effectiveness of these weapons, is a cooldown nerf the right course of action? I don't think so, because the whole playstyle is centered around peek and poke. You peek out from behind cover, you dump your alpha, you reverse back into cover and wait for your weapons to recycle. It doesn't matter much how long you have to wait for them to recycle, because you're safe behind cover. You can just wait as long as you need to. The current meta environment allows for that. The strength of the weapon is in the poke itself. That peeky-pokey playstyle is what dominates much of solo queue, most of group queue, and even a not insignificant proportion of competitive play and faction play as well. More heat? Yes, absolutely. But again, is this a good drawback to double down on if we want to effect a net nerf? No, heat isn't that great. Similar to cooldown, you can just sit behind rocks and wait for your heat to go down before poking out again. The current meta is conducive to this. You'll still be able to round a corner and with good aim be able to evaporate all of the armor off some poor sod's mech, and they're just going to be reduced to an organic salt factory. So this doesn't really solve the high alpha problem, it just makes Laser Vomit more boring to play because now you're forced to wait around to cool off, which is not engaging gameplay. Tighter ghost heat? This is true for Clan Larges, but not the ever so resilient Clan ER Medium. But could we reduce the Clan ER Medium such that it can only fire, say, 5, and then get a penalty on 6? Yeah. Until you actually look at mech builds. Sure, the High Alpha Marauder 2C, the Cauldron Born, they use 6 ER mediums, but the Deathstrike and Hellbringer don't. And the Deathstrike, it's one of those mechs that people cry the most about, myself included. Plus, what Clan ER medium builds would get caught up in a nerf like this as collateral damage, which don't deserve such a large nerf? We could combine the larges and mediums into a single Ghost Heat group, such if you fire 6 mediums and 1 large, you get Ghost Heat. But wait, that's not how Ghost Heat works. What would actually happen is you fire 2 mediums and 1 large, and you would get Ghost Heat. So that wouldn't work. This would be a job for Power Draw! Except that Power Draw, Energy Draw, is a fundamentally flawed system that wholesale eliminates large alphas, whereas Ghost Heat has loopholes that encourage you to diversify your build between weapons of differing performance characteristics and tonnage investments so that they can be fired together. The Energy Draw system says you can't combine any weapons to get a higher alpha, so it's better to just double down on the single most efficient weapon type available. Energy Draw encourages boating, and it disproportionately favors mechs with higher quantities of similar hardpoints, so I don't like it as a solution. Duration? Yes, longer duration is a great drawback for clan technology. It makes sense to me that if clan weapons are smaller, lighter weight, and deal more damage at greater range, then at least they should be less effective at actually applying that damage. This is the fundamental design philosophy behind clan technology as it's portrayed in MWO. Clan mounts more weapons, dealing objectively larger quantities of damage, but the missiles spread more, the autocannons fire in diluted bursts, the lasers take longer to burn. The damage just spreads, and it takes sufficient skill on part of the player to make up for that. Which, hey, makes sense to me, because clan warriors are supposed to be eugenically enhanced vatborns bred specifically for combat efficiency. I buy it. So yeah, I think duration is the way to go as a primary means of attenuating this problem. And that skill tree thing? It allows you to improve your clan laser duration by 10%. Theoretically, you could globally nerf all lasers in the game by 10% duration, and they'd just be back to where they started before the skill tree was introduced. Obviously, I just apply the change to the offending weapons. Since 10% brings you back to pre-tree durations, it's only when you go beyond 10% that you start enacting a net nerf relative to the pre-tree state of the game. So a 15% nerf would really be more like a 5% nerf compared to how it used to be. Even a 20% nerf, while it sounds like a big scary number, wouldn't be all that bad in practice. Furthermore, a duration nerf makes the most sense to me from a standpoint of collateral damage. Unlike a ghost heat change, you can actually quirk underperforming mechs with duration bonuses. In a sense, some builds that should be underperforming right now actually aren't, because they're being propped up by the uber-efficient Clanier medium. A duration nerf that hits this almost universally overperforming weapon system and exposes the comparatively underperforming chassis for what they really are, but allows them to be individually quirked to compensate, that sounds like a good balance decision to me. But a damage nerf? You can't really quirk a mech for bonus damage. I mean, you can, but it just seems silly. Speaking of that damage nerf PGI tried out, reducing damage too much undermines the philosophy that I feel defines what clan is and differentiates it from IS. This is asymmetrical balance. Clan is strictly superior in some areas, but has significant drawbacks in others. Balance. If you reduce the clan damage by too much, what you get is symmetricalization. Because if the clan weapons aren't that much better in damage but still have most or all of their drawbacks, then they're inferior, and you must tweak the other stats to compensate. And IS and clan just start looking more and more similar to one another. This is bad for MWO. We have two main factions in the game for a reason. They're supposed to be different, and not just subtly so. This is, by the way, why I object so strongly to that oft-suggested restructuring of Endo and Pharaoh and engines and heatsinks. IS and Clan, they build their mechs differently. They have unique design philosophies, and I enjoy that diversity. It's a core pillar of the Battletech franchise. It's one that I strongly believe can be worked around in the interest of balance. The game was so close to perfectly balanced just over a year ago. And then the skill tree came along, and the changes PGI have made since then have just been gradually unraveling everything. Can we all just go back to that patch before skill tree? That'd be great. Another change PGI tried was to ease the ghost heat on clan larges. Now you can fire 3 without penalty. This is actually a buff in disguise. If you haven't noticed the footage in the background already, the Marauder 2C with 3 MPL, 6 MPL is absolutely lols. I can see the headline for the next wine thread on Outreach HPG already. But really, what this means is that you can run 3 ER large in your vomit builds, which gives you more flexibility to play at range, and gives you a similar alpha profile as before. Sure, now you have to spend a few more tons to achieve that same alpha, which means sacrificing a heatsink or 2, lowering your engine a few clicks, but as I said before, this doesn't really address the high alpha problem, it just tickles it. Duration is an effective nerf, on the other hand, because it actually affects everything and universally. Finally, there's the Clan Gauss recoil. I couldn't think of a more pointless change. First of all, there's 2 styles to playing Gauss Vomit. One is you pre-charge your Gauss and you fire your lasers while loosing your Gauss. This front-loads your damage, but also means you have to wait for your Gauss to charge before you fire anything. The other style is to fire your lasers immediately, charging your Gauss all the while and releasing the Gauss at the end of the laser burn. People use both of these styles right now. Some people prefer one, some people prefer the other. There are arguments to be made on either side as to which might be the superior method. It's not evidently clear which is the winner, and even if there is one, it's not by a very wide margin. PGI's recoil eliminates the first of these styles. Now, instead of having 2 ways to choose between playing your Gauss Vomit, you only have one correct way to do it. Yay, diversity. The second style is basically a loophole to this nerf. The high alphas remain for the most part unhindered. This, in my opinion, is a direct failure at achieving the stated goal. It should just be abandoned. It's not a fun mechanic. Gauss already has a unique gameplay mechanic. It has the charge up. I like the charge. I enjoy it. It's fun. It's engaging. It is what makes Gauss a truly unique weapon from all the other ballistics. And people who constantly suggest removing it can respectfully fuck right off. And it adds skill floor to synchronizing it with other weapons. But to add recoil mechanic on top of that? I think it's just silly. At least Heavy Gauss gets a pass because it's a uniquely big fucking gun. It has the largest single damage in the game. At least until we get Hags. But anyways, enough about the whole alpha vomit problem. Let's instead talk about the alpha vomit problem. And by that I mean, this peeky pokey clan alpha vomit playstyle isn't just overbearing in the meta because it itself is strong, but because it's lacking in sufficient counters. Gauss PPC? Dead in the water. SRM brawling? Lol. Dat Artemis nerf, now you gotta face hug more. Clan small pulse brawling? Heh, PGI nuked that weapon out of the game so hard that I think I removed it from all my builds in MechWarrior 2. LRM buffs? Wait, LRM buffs? 17 April 2018, LRM velocity increased by 19%. Who asked for this? I mean, it didn't precipitate the alpha vomit meta, obviously, but it certainly isn't helping. I mean, what better way to encourage picky pokey alpha vomit playstyle than to buff a weapon that punishes people for daring to abandon the sanctity of sacred cover in the first place? If you're gonna force me to hide behind rocks to avoid the rain, I'm just gonna play builds that are more effective when hiding behind rocks. In PGI, just buff them again. Heat buffs for clan LRMs, which certainly was not necessary. Okay, enough ranting about LRMs. Anyways, the point that I'm trying to make is that clan laser vomit alphas can be addressed indirectly, and I don't mean by LRMs, by buffing up its languishing alternatives. This is what the balance gulag suggested, to buff all of those other weapons that make playing laser vomit a living hell on insert your planet here. Everything about the proposal pointed towards buffing underperforming weapons, even explicitly stated in multiple places, in multiple fashions, throughout the doc. By having SRMs and small lasers that aren't floppy, wet melee noodles, by having UAC-20s that aren't absolute rubbish, by having clan ACs that can actually apply their heat-efficient damage without being scoffed at, by having PPCs that are actually worth mounting on a wide variety of mechs, by having IS lasers that don't heat cap instantly after dealing their comparatively pathetic and short-ranged alphas. And God forbid we have pinpoint front-loaded Gauss PPC and Pop-Tarting, then maybe clan LOL Vomit would have enough competition on the battlefield to keep it in check. Just a thought. Oh, by the way, you want to know another thing that keeps the long-duration clan alpha vomit in check? You know that thing that was removed from the game over a year ago and people have been pining for it ever since? Kerensky forbid we be allowed to spread damage for ourselves. Nah, PGI isn't accomplishing that by nerfing all the weapons and easing us gradually towards a proverbial chain fire meta. King Harkinian already made a rant video about that. I'll link it in the video description. Speaking of rants, I think this is the end of mine. So, thanks for listening if you made it all the way to the end, and I remind you that everything in here is my opinion and my perspective. If you did like anything in here, go ahead and leave a like on YouTube, on the forums, and updoot on Outreach HPG. If you dislike what I have to say, leave a down doot, or on the forums just comment, because PGI isn't going to hear what you have to say if you don't say anything.